The right combos, you mean the right elements? Just triple element or repeating elements? No other combo is used. No, the reason no other combo is used is because of the Skull Forge, and just having unlimited stamina is like, while it is fun, I understand why they kind of want to veer away from that. You know, like, I don't think I played the sword before, you know, before repeating element spam was a thing. The sword played with every single combo. You know, if you're out of stamina and you can't use repeating elements during overdrive, you go with your quad cross combo because it doesn't cost stamina. If you need a little bit of forward momentum or vertical reach, you use your right click or your heavy attacks. So my whole thing is just like, I missed that as much as the next person, because I know that, I think one of the biggest, and this kind of ties into Meownie's question, is that repeating elements, just as the way that everything kind of turned out with the mods, it's not an interesting playstyle. The sword isn't really a weapon. Avenging Overdrive is the weapon, and repeating elements is the vessel to play the weapon, if that makes sense. That's my opinion. I hope that they ditch that design. I don't think that the sword is in a good place currently in terms of being a cohesive weapon that feels good when you pick it up, and also isn't very rewarding in the late game. And what I mean by rewarding, of course, it deals, you know, quite a bit of damage, and you know, gets kills and can kill stuff with. I mean, its playstyle in general isn't very rewarding because it's very seemingly simple. It gets written off, and basically, if you don't have Avenging Overdrive, you're greatly diminished in power, and that's pretty whack. I hope that we get away from that as well. I don't know if that means Avenging Overdrive gets nerfed or what happens, but I like the way Avenging Overdrive feels right now. I don't feel like it's too imbalanced. It makes things a little bit easier in terms of like, hey, I need to interrupt, but at the same time you need to be able to build meter, which kind of ties back into repeating elements again. So I think the issue is the stamina. Infinite stamina and repeating elements is probably the biggest flaw of the current iteration of Sword. And so I don't really know how to solve that, but what I can say in terms of a sword rework, I want the sword to keep its accuracy. I want to keep its not necessarily its mobility. I don't want to say, man, sword like really needs to have those crazy gap closers that it has. What I do hope stays by the rework is the ability to move, like the omnidirectional rolling for the sword is so satisfying. That's my my two favorite things of the sword: Avenging Overdrive and the rolling light attack. It's what makes the weapon, and the rolling light attack is the move that separates, you know, the mere mortals from gods. It's the skill check, and I hope that we maintain skill checks throughout the weapon reworks. But I would like to hear your guys' thoughts. Avenging isn't OP, other specials just suck. I think that that is fairly accurate. I think that that is fairly accurate. Valiant Overdrive after receiving... I mean, this goes for both specials. But you get Ardent Cyclone very early. And Ardent Cyclone has its place in the early game. It's like and I know some people don't really like the use of this term, but it's more of like the casual move, right? It's easy to use. You know, you don't really need to think about it. You get your overdrive, you deal some damage, and you're good. The thing with Valiant Overdrive is that Valiant Overdrive is very strong. It's just when in comparison to Avenging Overdrive, it's not. And so I wouldn't say Valiant Overdrive is weak. I would say Ardent Cyclone lacks the mobility. The fact that it does less damage pound for pound with Valiant Overdrive, but Valiant Overdrive offers an experience in that you can dash around, and it's actually really good for following up and stuff like that. I probably shouldn't have gone Torrent Shield there. I probably should have went Executioner. But that is an interesting point, and I do agree for the most part. Like, Ardent Cyclone for sure needs a big buff, and I think the place to put it is that hit at the end, right? Like, more hits that land, Ardent Cyclone deals more damage, and then maybe make that just a bigger payoff. I don't know. I just feel like it really lacks any interesting, like, just kind of going AFK and spinning around. Like, Ardent Cyclone is kind of like its own problem by design sort of thing. But I don't think it's, like, doesn't belong in the game. It just needs, I think it needs like a slight damage buff for the people, to make it worth it for the people that want to use it. Because once you get Avenging Overdrive, it's really hard to go back. Don't Axe specials have the same issue? I would say
What's up,
Axe,
gamers, and welcome to the Rework.
Axe has a lot of issues. Not as many as actually, sorry. I was gonna say more so than the sword. The sword is like a very cohesive weapon. It has a philosophy. It fills a niche. And the Axe does too, but the moves surrounding it don't really play into it, if that makes sense. Like, Resolve doesn't really play into it because of other mechanics or other systems, or just cells, buffs, whatever it is, amps, do them better than the Axe does them in kit, which is scuffed. Valiant isn't bad, it's just not good enough to be on par with other weapons. I think you mean other specials there. If other weapons were needed, I'd be fine using Valiant. But for now, Valiant isn't enough damage. Well, the thing is you don't get, like, you need to take yourself out of the place of where you're at in the game, because you need to think about a brand new player. If I reset my account right now, I have Valiant Overdrive day one. That's good. That is very good. I would rather have that over Ardent Cyclone, because Valiant Overdrive forces you to learn how to play the weapon. So I think that Valiant Overdrive is the correct, like, early game special for, and then once you know, oh, I finished the quest line, I'm doing trials, you know, now I'm rewarded with Avenging Overdrive. I don't really agree with that. Like, I don't like that you get Avenging Overdrive. I get so many YouTube comments that are just like, yo, how do you do the cross slash thing? And it's just like, every single time it's a trials, it's from trials, and it's just like, I don't, and that question, or like, makes me think, like, why are specials tied to the trial shop? People, why isn't that more out there in the open? And this kind of is like a side fact from the actual topic, which is just kind of discussing the sword rework and what my hopes are for it, or what our hopes are for it. But I ultimately think that Avenging Overdrive needs to be put somewhere else. Like, honestly, I think all the specials need to be put somewhere else. I get that maybe when the trials rework happens, we do some reallocation. I think that would be good. Put some, you know, silver mark cosmetics in the trial shop when they get reworked, you know, so the people that buy the hunt pass don't feel robbed. And then I don't know, but it confuses players, and I don't think that is good. you know, how do you get X special for this weapon? You know, the games are all about combat. Like, the game is all about combat, and people don't know where to go to get the good parts of the combat. It's not good. That Hellion got destroyed. Thanks for your insights. I hadn't been playing for that long, so it's interesting to hear how Sword was repeating before repeating elements was. Yeah, so I mean, this is worth going over because the Sword has been reworked prior to this rework, and before then, the combo and repeating elements was still an issue, and I think that's why it ultimately was changed. Like, the special was changed. You would literally just go repeating elements. You would swing 3 times, press Q. Your Q, your old special was like a Hadouken fireball, and so that would generate enough meter to use your your tier 1 fireball, and that was this. You just spam that until you ran out of stamina. Now, this was before the Sword had enough damage to generate infinite stamina, and this is just kind of like a byproduct of the way that scaling is worked in the game. And you know, this was actually even before the power score that we currently have in the game is, you know, what we know now. Before, infinite stamina wasn't even remotely worried about from the Skullforge. It obviously helped, and I actually there's probably maybe 3 older videos of being able to spam pretty close to infinitely, but it was never infinitely. Like, I always ran out by the time the hunt ended. But the thing is that the playstyle now is a lot more diverse than it was back then. And that's kind of weird to think about because of Avenging Overdrive. And that's why I think it's a good special, right? Like, Avenging Overdrive is fun at the very least. And I think ultimately that's what we all want. You know, we want things that are fun and interesting in the game. Parrying just feels good. It looks good, even if it's a little busted. But if you can make more difficult aspects of, like, the reason why Avenging Overdrive feels pretty OP is because of repeating elements. These things, like, play back and forth into each other. But ultimately, I trust Phoenix Labs to make good decisions on the reworks of all the weapons, because for the most part, except for maybe the hammer, because the hammer has seen, like, very, very small tweaks, maybe like 6 or 7 different tweaks. And I still feel like they haven't quite gotten the hammer right. But other than that, I trust them to create improved weaponry when it comes to these reworks. It might not be exactly what we think we want or need, but at the very least, I hope that we can get what is fun. Hammer have biggest issue in its usage. You just spam one combo. I mean, that's every weapon. Chain blades spams swinging blades. Sword spams repeating elements. Warpike spams whatever the hell Warpike spams. Repeaters don't have combos. You know, like that issue. That is the reason for the weapon rework. Seishu. So they want to get away from that. They want to give the weapons meaning. They want to give the combos meaning. Like, that is like priority number 1. Like, all the weapons spam the same combos. Very rarely that they deviate. Axe basically has one combo as well. Like, yeah, it's every single weapon. It's very prominent. Don't other weapons offer at least a special or secondary combo that's useful? I mean, the hammer doesn't have Mighty Landbreaker all the time. So Concussive Blast isn't necessarily a combo, but it's still a utility thing. Like, it falls under, like, just because it's a buff, you know? That's like saying Okay, so Warpike doesn't have the same issue because the best special is Savage Wellspring. It's just a buff instead of a move, right? That deals damage, but granted, that's literal. Mighty Landbreaker is like one of the strongest buffs in the game, save for Aether Drive tonics. Warpike has light attacks for wounding, at least. Yeah. I mean, you could say that priming, you know. You could say that priming is a mechanic that adds extra depth to your one combo spam. You know what I'm saying? I mean, either way, we're kind of like I'm splitting hairs, but the point still stands that everything kind of spams the same move, and that's the reason for the weapon rework. Like that is literally what they've said that they want to deviate from. So we're kind of getting what we want, you know, already. What's going on, y'all? It's Rev, and welcome back to the end of this video. I'm putting together this video. Kind of abruptly ends. Doe ends up raiding me, and we start talking about something else that has nothing to do with the weapon rework. So I want to extend the question over to you guys here on YouTube. What are your hopes, expectations for the sword rework? Specifically, it could be about other weapons. There's a lot of conversation about weaponry and Dauntless. All 5 of the base weapons are getting reworked. So let's talk about them, and I'll be able to more accurately address concerns in the future as we start getting to other weapon reworks. If you guys like this video, please leave a like. If you want to support the channel even further, you can subscribe and use creator code REVVYRAD in the Dauntless in-game store or the Epic Games Store. You can hit me up on Twitter. You can follow the Twitch stream, be a part of the conversation there. And other than that, thank you guys again so very much for watching, and I will see you on the Shatter Dials.